Welcome to We Are Venomaniacs, the Venom Site's official podcast for all of your symbiote news, reviews, and point of views. My name is Orion, and I'm joined by Carlos and Aaron. Say hi, guys.
Hey,
Yo.
Awesome. So it's the first episode of 2019, and today we'll be discussing the latest story arc of Donny Cates and Ryan Stegman's Venom comic, titled The Abyss. In the final issue of The Abyss, which was number 12 and released last week, it brought along with it a bevy of revelations, more questions, and a lot of hubbub in the Venomaniac community. Donnie offered a lot to unpack with this arc, but luckily we have a lot of great art from Ryan and guest pencilers Ivan Coelho and Joshua Cassara to deliver the massive emotional punches. To start, what was your favorite parts between issues 7 and 12, Carlos?
Well, after the whole fight between Venom and all, I was just kind of glad that Eddie was going back to his roots and finally going back to San Francisco, trying to he was doing a little bit of soul searching and why Venom went quiet on him. And I was just glad that they bring back Carl, Eddie's father, and he was just trying to find answers as to why Venom went dark on him, and it just bring a little sense, a little throwback to Lethal Protector. But yeah, it was just great to see him back there. That was pretty much my favorite part. So,
How about you, Aaron?
yeah. So for me, it's like I'll say the same thing. Like, I'm happy we are seeing like Mary again, and Carl and Anne, and these are characters like we have not seen for at least 30 years, and I'm really happy someone finally decided let's do some more lore for Eddie himself. So I'm really happy that happened. But we're going to talk about in a second if that was a good thing or a bad thing.
And I'd say my favorite part is, of course, this entire arc was just focused on Eddie Brock and answering some lingering questions, and then creating some more questions about his past history and his family life. And I especially really love the introduction of Dylan as his son. I really look forward to seeing where this plot thread goes. But like you said, this was just there's so much to unpack from all these revelations we've gotten. Revelations like the symbiote has been altering and editing Eddie's memories for pretty much their entire relationship, and even those illusions have persisted even when they weren't together. So and quite a few other revelations concerning Anne Wying. So I guess maybe to begin, maybe we can begin with let's talk about the Maker, who is I think a standout character introduction for this series. For those who don't know, the Maker is an evil version of Reed Richards, Mr. Fantastic, from the Ultimate Universe of Marvel, who was transplanted into the mainstream continuity, the 616 universe. And he's been toying around here and there in the background through other Marvel comics, but surprisingly, he was given quite a role for this comic, and we're not quite sure yet whether he's friend or foe for Eddie. He seems to have his own agenda.
yeah, no. Seeing him at first, like I didn't know too much about him. Uh, he just seemed more of a psychotic version of Reed Richards because it is his ultimate version of himself. Uh, I guess he was just more interested of the symbiote's behavior, uh, why it's been causing Eddie to suddenly, have hallucinations. He wasn't sure about his like deeper past. It had some connections with Dark Origin in some sense, and like how the symbiote was reacting. But uh, yeah, he was kind of a very interesting character of him being in the book. So he was yeah, it was pretty cool to see him.
Yeah, he's not really a sort of character you would think you would see show up in a like that actually be like in a Venom book like this. But I've read a few things of him before, and he's really insane. So it was kind of interesting to see how he sort of plays off of Eddie, but also how he's more so like more actually interested in, like in the science of Null and himself. So he was a pretty good antagonist slash friend slash friend of me for this arc, and I hope we see him back because I'm sure he's not done messing with Eddie.
Well, yeah, definitely. So he seems to have an interest in Null, because originally when he captured Eddie, he was after the Grendel symbiote and Null's codex. So I think we'll definitely see more of him in the future, especially since just recently Donny Cates and Ryan Stegman had announced that C2E2, the next big Marvel event for the summer, uh, Absolute Carnage, which will feature Carnage. We saw him return in the pages of Carnage Born, being reborn with a fusion of the Carnage Codex and then the Grendel symbiote. So he's now kind of under the influence of Null, and I'm pretty sure we'll definitely see the Maker return for Absolute Carnage as a key, as maybe a key player. Definitely, he'll have the science behind it. Like, he will definitely be able to probably help with Eddie and whoever else is on Eddie's team to defeat Null and Carnage. But otherwise, definitely cool introduction of him into the canon for Eddie Brock. But I would say, so what are some other things you think we should discuss about this? Because I mean, there's just so much.
Well, the other point I want to bring as well is that after when Eddie and Rex defeated Null, uh, Venom took on the form of a bulldog, and at first we didn't understand why. I thought he was more of a, I guess, lobotomized, I would say. So it was kind of interesting seeing Venom take the form of a dog, even though at the same time he wasn't bonded to Eddie. He was just more of a guard dog, if anything.
Yeah.
And I mean, he played a pretty significant role in Venom Unleashed, where he was able to track down Cletus and his new Brotherhood of Null worshippers.
His cult of carnage, yes.
Yeah, and he was trying to warn Eddie about it. But yeah, it was pretty interesting to see that.
Yeah.
So
I think it's a confusing point too because we're led to believe at the end of the Rex arc that the symbiote is pretty much brain dead, but at some point during this arc, it's revealed that no, the symbiote isn't quite brain dead. So it's like, what was the point of bringing it in as a brain dead dog or whatever? So it is very confusing. It seems to be some sort of defensive mechanism for the symbiote, but we're not 100% sure of what's going on there.
Well, right, because at the end, when they were done with Null, him and the Maker like said that that they were like on the run for 5 whole weeks, or like they were on the run for 3 weeks in this like beast form, and like Eddie doesn't know what was going on during those 3 weeks, except the part where he went home to his father for one session, and then after that he was stuck with the Maker for 2 weeks, and we still don't know exactly what was happening during those 3 weeks they were on the run. But there's also a lot more other questions that we haven't had the answers to as well, which I think we're going to discuss here in a few minutes.
Yeah. So definitely the question of what was the purpose of the symbiote acting brain dead, or was it actually brain dead, or it was because I think symbiotes have definitely had a past with coming back from being brain dead. For instance, when in Superior Carnage, when Carnage was separated from the Carnage symbiote and pretty much brain dead from there because he was lobotomized by Kane in Minimum Carnage. When the symbiote was reattached to him in the Carnage Annual, we see that the symbiote had repaired the damage to Cletus's brain and essentially brought him back. So there's definitely this now ongoing theme of catatonia and returning from that with symbiotes. But otherwise, maybe we can talk about Eddie's memories being tampered with by the symbiote, which really lit a fire under a lot of fans with issue 11. That was in issue 11. I think, if I recall correctly, is now one of our top performing books for the series. It even beat Amazing Spider-Man in sales, which was amazing.
Yeah, so from the start of this series, it has been selling really well, but we've also started to see a whole lot more fans saying that they really don't like the book now. And, started with issue 1 up to, I think, around issue 10, where we started finally to see that it died. I think that's really where fans started to turn against the book, and half of it is they don't like the way that Eddie's been written now, or like how the backstory has been written, and they also don't like how he and the symbiote have been acting off of each other now, with being sort of like deceptive. But I mean, personally, I have been really like enjoying the book so far, but I can sort of understand why folks don't like the way that the book has been moving so far. And I think we're going to hit more on that in a second. But there's a lot here we sort of need to unpack, and I don't know if we're going to have enough time to do all that in a short hour or 2 hour podcast. But
yeah.
Well, the thing is that Donny Cates has, changed a lot during these few issues. More so that one scene in particular, I guess he retconned parts of Dark Origin, and it was revealed that Eddie, when he was a teenager, he was the one responsible for, I believe he ran over was it the kid or the cat?
No, he ran over a kid.
It was the kid, yeah.
It was the kid.
Yeah.
And, the one thing I really questioned the most, and I'm not really fully agreeing with, is why he became the lethal protector, the protector of the innocents, where, his father, Carl, pretty much beat him in the interrogation room, making him say that he is innocent when he really isn't. And that was the whole reason why he became, the protector of the innocent. So I really didn't get that at all.
Right. Well, folks also say, well, he was a normal guy until Spider-Man ruined his life, but this sort of gives more of a build-up where he always saw himself as a protector of the innocents from himself, which I guess that's what the whole scene with the car and like Eddie and Joe was going to be, because his father was a rich man, so he was going to sell I don't know, like the judge and the jury off, but like Eddie just had to say that he was innocent, but he was like, no, I can't, because I killed that kid. And his father is just wailing on him, forcing him to say, I'm innocent, I'm innocent, I'm innocent, which I kind of like that scene, but it does kind of go against what we know about Eddie previously, of how he really just had that one bad day where Spider-Man, quote unquote, ruins his life. But I did like that whole scene. But yeah.
Yeah, I think it definitely plays on the origin of his complex with Because with Venom, he represents the inverse of great power and great responsibility, where he uses this great power, he has this great power, and he absolutely has no sense of responsibility when using it. So, so this whole new origin with Eddie accidentally killing a kid and then his father beating him into saying that he was innocent, I think that plays into this mentality he developed where he just can't take responsibility because it was just beaten out of him because he wanted to take responsibility for this crime, but his father abused him to the point where he's now become a liar. He deflects all responsibility onto other people.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was very interesting to see that origin because it was very clever of Donnie when he first introduced that scene to us. We thought, oh, because originally when he introduced it, he only showed like the brief flash of the kid running in the road with the dog and the car approaching him, and we assumed that that kid was Eddie Brock, and that he kept on referring to the accident that ruined his father, and drove the final wedge between him and his father. So, and then like an issue or so later, we know it was a reverse role where it was Eddie was the driver and he accidentally killed this kid. That was, I thought that was pretty clever. A very shocking moment, saying, "Oh no, this was, as Donnie put it, this is his Uncle Ben moment."
Yes, I also want to add that I think they first teased the thing with the car in issue 2 because I think that was a time where Rex was saying things about Eddie,
Right.
how like he was an only child, which like goes back to something we're going to talk about later. Yeah, so in that scene, so I think that was issue 2, and then issue 11 or 12 was the one where we actually see where he was, where like he was the driver of the car, and that was like 9 or 8 issues later, which was a really excellent build-up, and I did not expect that at all. So yeah,
it was quite the whammy when we read that. But yeah, I think we can move along to like I said, the symbiote has been playing mind games with Eddie since the beginning.
Yeah.
And so it plays into not only his time with the symbiote, but his time before the symbiote. About his family, we learned that Eddie never had a sister named Mary, who apparently died of cancer, and he never had an uncle who died of cancer. His uncle was actually mentioned in Spectacular Spider-Man: The Hunger, which was the infamous run that introduced the whole idea that Eddie had originally had cancer in his origin, and that was one of the contributing factors to his suicide attempt and the origin of Venom. So it was very interesting that Donnie remembered to pull that particular element in from The Hunger, because I think he mentioned that The Hunger is actually one of his favorite stories.
Yes, but I think that's the mini-series one. But but yeah.
Yeah. So he's definitely making some deep cuts here into Venom's history, and finally answering that no, he didn't have an uncle or a sister who both died of cancer. In fact, Eddie never had cancer before he had the symbiote. The symbiote kind of put that into his mind to create dependency, and then it was kind of it was a bit vague about the whole did Eddie have cancer, because with Spectacular Spider-Man: the Hunger, it was revealed that Eddie's cancer had returned to, and that's why the symbiote was trying to leave Eddie in that story. So Donny Cates kind of confirmed on Twitter after a fan questioned him about it, stating that yeah, Eddie didn't have cancer in the first part, but being bonded to the symbiote somehow developed cancer within him.
Right. So I think we should focus on the symbiote manipulating Eddie, because that's one of the main things that really turns some fans off from what I've seen. So yeah. Well, from the movie, we've gotten a lot of more fans who are focused on Eddie and the symbiote as a loving couple, and I don't have any problems with that. But based on other books we've seen, it's not quite as loving as you would think. Because starting with Mike Costa's series, that's the main series that like folks have started seeing them as a loving relationship. But it was mostly one way. Through that entire series, Eddie is saying, "I love you, my darling love," but the symbiote is not really showing any affection back to him. And like even in Mike Costa's series, the symbiote has been manipulating him too. Because starting with 150, it started off with this whole thing about how love is pain and all this angsty sort of stuff where it sets up that these two really don't have the best relationship. And from that, we've seen that the symbiote wasn't really loving of Eddie; it was being more possessive. That's why it almost killed the priest. That's why it didn't want Liz Allen Liz Allen around Eddie because the symbiote doesn't want to be alone. And even I think in issue 155, I think, the symbiote saying, "Sometimes I do kind of change Eddie's mind so we can go fight other villains." And it was also lying about Sleeper, which again goes back to it being scared with the same reason that Eddie is also scared of being alone. So the symbiote isn't exactly as loving as I think folks think they are. And even like when I started reading that series, I was also saying, why is Eddie saying that he loves the symbiote, but it's not saying it back? Which, of course, there were a few nice points between them, like doing some cute things together, but I didn't really get the impression that the symbiote really wanted to say it back. Not until Cates wrote that issue number, was that 9 at the very end, where the symbiote before it dies says "I love you, Eddie," and that was the main point where I actually believed that the symbiote does want to show some affection back. Let's see.
Yeah.
I just lost my train of thought here, but y'all go ahead. But yeah, y'all go ahead.
Yeah. So yeah, you know, well, I would say Donnie had pointed out pretty early on that he with this particular arc he was going to illustrate why Eddie and the symbiote's relationship does not work. It's a very toxic relationship.
Right.
And that can be seen in in his previous history with the symbiote. They pretty much use each other's anger towards Spider-Man for a common goal, and there may have been some instances where they were a bit more intimate with each other. There was something kindled between them, but it always came back to this path of vengeance and using each other's powers. Like Eddie is addicted to the symbiote's powers. The symbiote has always been some sort of drug allegory, an allegory for
Right.
addiction, and that shows with Eddie because he just can't drop it. Like for a while after he had stopped being with Venom and he was dealing with his cancer and then also went on to become anti-Venom, he was kind of cured of that addiction somewhat, although the anti-Venom symbiote didn't help with that because he just got his power back. But he definitely saw the symbiotes for what they were as addictions for him and others. They were just drugs basically. And so Donnie is trying to refocus us because in Mike Costa's run, Mike Costa's run really appeals to what we call the Symbrockers. people who
Mhm.
likes who pretty much spun out of the whole Venom movie thing, where they see Venom and Eddie as a loving couple. So Mike Costa's run really appealed to them because we saw a lot more of Eddie being lovey-dovey, and even that when he was brought back in issue 6 of Mike Costa's run, just before number 150 when they got back together, it was very jarring to see Eddie all of a sudden saying, "Oh, my love, this symbiote Venom, I love the symbiote," all that. It's like, because prior to that, Eddie didn't like the symbiote. He hated the symbiote, and he started in the Carnage run by Jerry Conway. It was noted that he started to realize that part of the problem was with him, with Eddie Brock himself.
Yeah, I mean,
Because
even he was Toxin before that too.
yeah, so when Eddie was Toxin, he started to realize that the symbiotes are part of the problem, but he's also part of the problem that he has, because
Right.
symbiotes only enable him what like you said, it only enables what was actually there before.
Right. So, yeah. So they have not always had the best relationship, and it's certainly not as healthy as I think a lot of folks think it is. Now, but I don't know if Costa is going to lead to a more healthy relationship or not. Of
Gates.
course, if the book keeps selling well and doing all that, they're going to have to stay together. So, and I don't think Costa just no, sorry, yeah, Kate, sorry, Kate, Kate's Costa. I don't think Kate wants to throw out the character, because you can't have them two as Venom if they don't figure each other out. So, I mean, the thing with this media is that there's a whole waiting list of things you have to do. Like, from one issue, you have to wait an entire month, and over that entire month, folks going to be upset and mad that this happened.
Yeah, you're
But
stewing in
that's
your own.
the way.
Yeah, you're stewing in your own pot.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah, yeah, and the whole story hasn't been said, which, of course, that doesn't mean we can't judge the book, but I do think it means we can have some sort of restraint. Like, mainly because we've all been fans of Venom for years, and there's been a whole lot of times where like our favorite folks have died. Like, we've had Eddie Brock died at least 3 or 5 times, and he's always, maybe a few issues later or a few years later, he's back. The same thing with like Flash Thompson. Flash Thompson was there for 6 years, and like a lot of like the Brock fans saying, when is Eddie going to come back? And he's been killed off a few times during that run, but he comes back. It's just the way that the medium is set up, and I really don't know. Yeah, like, same thing with him. Like, he's been dead a whole lot of times, but he always comes back. And I guess you don't really want to set yourself up for like always expecting the status quo, but at the same time, it's like you need to have some restraint with always thinking, oh, like, from this one issue, the whole thing is awful and it's worse. It's never going to get any better. But I mean, we can't say that it's going to get any better. So I don't know.
Yeah,
It's
just a matter of, I think most of the uproar has come from new fans and people who aren't familiar with Eddie and the symbiote's long history of mutual
I mean, I don't
abuse.
want to say that. Yeah, like, I don't want to say that's true, because they're just as vowed as fans. But I mean, it's just hard to say, because it's like, I mean, yeah, because Venom is the character that always has retcons. Like, everything changes, everything happens, but I don't really know what to say, because it's, that's just the way that these things go. You wait a month, something else happens. If you don't like this writer or this story, you can always read the old ones, or like maybe in a few years there's going to be a writer that writes these two the way you want to have them written.
Well, that's the thing too, because
right
now, because people have been having a lot about debates between Costa and Donnie's writing style, and yeah, I mean,
yeah,
the constant retcons are kind of a little make you raise an eyebrow, and it's kind of confusing as to why it's being done. But
right.
it's just, it's just the way how things are going in the Venom comics. But
I have a feeling that we might be done with most of these retcons for now. These first two arcs were all about retconning first the symbiote's history, getting it back in line after several different rewrites. With Bendis's Planet of the Symbiotes and the Clintar and everything, and the Space Knight stuff. It was trying to answer some questions of what's real, what's not, and getting things back on track for the symbiote. And then this arc was all about getting Eddie's history in order. And even then, we're still left with a lot of questions about Eddie's history, because the whole mind game thing is just another level of questions. It's like what we still don't know 100% what's real, but at least we're getting some questions answered.
Right, and there's something else I wanted to say. Let's see if I can think about it. Yeah, so folks are also saying that they don't like the way Cates is rewriting everything, and like as we said, well, man, this is sort of hard to say.
Because
I
he's
think now
trying to leave his mark, right?
Right, but also folks are saying he's just rewriting whatever he wants to do, so it's his book. But again, I mean, we have not touched on Mary, Carl, and Anne in like 20, 30 years, and sure, folks may not like the way they're written, which I think is what we're going to discuss next. But at least someone brought these characters back. And let me also say that with the writing styles, with Costa and Cates, I'm a person, and I think we all can agree to this, that we like to see Venom dark and serious, but also fun. So Mike Costa's run was mostly all fun, but there wasn't a lot of build up between Eddie and the symbiote, besides Sleeper, of course.
Yeah.
But that was a fun series. Like Venom was always doing these fun things, like he's fighting aliens or he's fighting, whatever, like every other month. Right. And yeah.
No, because the thing is, like, again, yeah, some of the stuff that Casa did was pretty fair and decent, but I still stand by that his Lee Price character is garbage, and I can't stand him at all.
Right.
Given.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure a lot of folks will agree that was a bad idea, and I'm pretty sure he does too, which I think we'll talk about him in a second when we start looking at Absolute Carnage. Yeah. But yeah, like I was saying, like I love Venom being fun, and I also love him being serious. And I understand that folks don't like this series because it's way too serious. It's too dark. There's a lot of shock revelations. But again, that's the thing that's sort of right. But that's the thing that sells books, and that's the thing that makes these characters memorable, because Eddie and Venom have not had a whole lot of Gwen Stacy moments or things along those lines. But these are going to be the series like where you go back and say, this is the issue where they see Venom actually has a son and all this other revelation. So again, he is making his mark, and I understand why folks don't like it, but I like Venom being dark, and I like him being serious. That's why, or fun, sorry. Like, that's why I like the time in between when we started off on the first few issues of the First Toast series, which was by Costa, and we were also in the middle of this new series by Cates. It was like you get this fun thing about Venom going to space and fighting Skrulls, and he has a new kid and all this other things, and you also get this more grounded, dark and serious approach to himself. But
yeah,
I guess it's just like different strokes for like different folks. I guess is all it is. Which if you don't
It's
like
what
it, I'm
flavor do
sorry,
you want?
but
It's like what do you want to go with? But again,
right.
it's just yeah. I mean, so far it's just it's just a bunch of mixed reviews. People are not really liking what Donnie's doing with all the retconning and the changes. Some people are on board with it. So it's just what do you settle for at the end of the day?
Yeah.
I mean,
so I guess
I mean, like again, like I for one, like I'm sticking with it because I am hyped for Absolute Carnage coming out in the summer, but like I just hope they don't make more unnecessary changes that really shouldn't be changed. Because like I just hope they don't say, "Oh yeah, well this happened at this time." No, this didn't happen, so now I'm changing it.
Like I expressed, I'm hoping that these two arcs were Donnie getting the dirty laundry aired, and saying, "All right, we're gonna realign." So these two arcs are serving as the jumping off point for the rest of the series. I hope, where the rest of the series will deal more with actual story and not just going back and changing things and solidifying canon. So I mean, the next thing after War of the Realms and everything, Case will return, and then in August we'll have Absolute Carnage. And so from here, I would say that the next thing that Case has to deal with is getting Eddie and the symbiote back together, because you can't have a Venom book with both of them separated, you know. It and the symbiote has done a lot of unforgivable shit and everything, but it's really trying to be better. Like at the end of issue 12, we see it saying, it's trying its best to be better. So I think there'll be a point where the symbiote will kind of make up for some of the things it's done, and Eddie will see that it's attempting to be better, and Eddie himself is trying to be on a redemptive path. So they can agree on that and maybe come together and really try to work things out with each other. So that's what I'm hoping to see next, is that it's not more of this retconning stuff, but just forward progress. And I believe that this particular arc serves as a reorientation for Eddie Brock's characterization, where Costa's run kind of derailed it a bit by completely turning 180 on the way Eddie Brock viewed the symbiote, and all of a sudden started loving it. We're now being reoriented, saying, well, wait, that's a bit ridiculous because there's all this dirty laundry between the two of them. So we're getting back to a starting point saying, all right, from the end of Conway's Carnage, we were left with Eddie in this situation. So now we're going back to that and then starting from there.
But yeah, no. Other than that, this whole arc, we got to be introduced to Dylan, who at first we thought it was his brother. So now, obviously everyone's read all the issues, and it turns out that he's his actual son. But also too, even Venom was manipulating Eddie's mind, and he was hallucinating, seeing Null. And at first, I thought, I hope Dylan is not another manifestation of Null, but it looks like that's not the case.
Yeah, I think the whole thing about Venom making Eddie see him as Null, I think that was just another extension of his defensive mechanism, because he's worried about Eddie leaving the symbiote.
But this is the thing I was kind of like really confused. It's like in First Host, well, even before that, when Venom was facing off against Spider-Woman, Venom temporarily bonded to her and showed her that he was pregnant with his new spawn. And then Venom gives birth to Sleeper, and Eddie's being very supportive, in the birthing process, and they're both happy that Sleeper, was birthed. But now we jumped here, and now Venom is all afraid that Eddie's going to leave him once he finds out.
Well, yeah. I mean, think about it this way: with Sleeper, at least Eddie and the Venom and the symbiote had something they could share together, and he would stay there and support Venom, raising Sleeper. Whereas Eddie could say, "Screw you, symbiote," and go off to raise Dylan on his own, and leaving the symbiote out of the picture. So it's a matter of the symbiote being afraid of being abandoned again.
Which also hits back to Eddie also being scared of also being alone. So they both kind of share the same sort of fear. So I guess we can talk about Dylan more now.
Yeah.
Eddie's a dad.
That's one of the things I sort of was hoping and sort of scared of when we first saw him, because it's like Venom's always been a character that's on his own. He's like running through the sewers. He's saying he hoo. I want to go kill Spider-Man, but I'm just not sure how Eddie and Venom can exist now that Eddie has a son, because now he may want to just focus on him. Like, unless something where maybe his mother is still alive, maybe he can stay with her. But I'm really just not sure where Venom is going to go from here.
That's the thing. That
he has a son.
That's the thing too. It's like, how is Donnie going to explain that? Like, is Anne really still alive, or is she actually permanently dead? Like, we have to know.
That comes back around to the mind manipulation point.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. See, like, I like the fact that Eddie has a son, because it gives him more of a, I don't know, like a stance in the Marvel universe. Like all the cool dudes have sons. You got, son of Hulk, son of Wolverine. You got all these cool, father and son pods. Things that are happening. But for Venom to have a son, that's pretty cool. But it's also really unsettling, because I don't know where else you can go with the character from here. But I do like Dylan. He's 9 years old, as I think we've seen in one of the solicitations. But I'm just really excited to see what's going to be happening for him. I'm seeing a lot of folks think that he should be Sleeper, and I would totally sort of be on board for that. I don't see. Half of me now is like, I don't want to give that kid a symbiote after all the stuff he's been through.
Oh yeah, no.
Well,
but if you give him a symbiote and it's Sleeper, now it's like they can both be happy raising their both sons as one, body. But still, like, I don't want to give that kid a symbiote right now. But.
No, but here's the thing. I have to address the elephant in the room, because I've been reading some of the comments on the Venom site, and some of the members there were speculating how Dylan was conceived in the first place, and it was hinted at when Venom was bonded to Annie. So the thing is, did Venom have something to do with the impregnation? Is he some sort of symbiote human hybrid?
Well, let's discuss that whole thing with the mom.
Yeah.
Okay, so when we found out that he was actually a son, there was only like 2 or 3 choices, right? There was Beth and Elizabeth, but if Dylan's 9 years old, that like wouldn't have made any sense. So the only option was, it was either Anne or it was a new character, and I think we were pretty sure they were going to go with Anne. But with Anne, they were divorced, and they didn't really have any loving relationship. And all the time that we saw Anne, she was never pregnant, and they never mentioned a son. So where do you get that she had a son? Like in between the time we saw her as She-Venom and when she died. And this is another thing that people don't like, and I can sort of agree with it. When she was She-Venom the first time, like as we said, it just says we bonded. So something happened where the symbiote, most likely unexpectedly, because I don't think I'm pretty sure it didn't do this on purpose, but again, we don't know yet. It mixed with Anne, and somehow it got her pregnant through Eddie too, right? And that raises that. There's been a lot of talk about how that's a no-no. That's not
the
good.
word rape has been thrown around a lot.
Yes, and I, for one, think that was a bad decision, because that just fuels the fire of that the symbiote is bad, and the rest of the story is bad because this one weird thing happened, which I don't think is necessarily true, but I do think they could have handled that a lot better. Like I think they would have. I think it would have been better if they just had, Eddie and Anne had sex right there when she was She-Venom in the bath, like the symbiote bath healing thing. But again, she was being shot and dying, so I don't know how that would have happened.
Now,
yes.
I would say that
we're gonna eventually find out one way or the other.
Yeah.
So.
So 2 points here is that first on Twitter, when people were asking Donnie about the circumstances of this pregnancy and whether this will be addressed further, Donnie, of course, says that stay tuned because there might be more to talk about on this, and I'm pretty sure he does have a plan to address this. But another thing is that one of our Venom Siders on Discord, Argon, brought up a really cool and I think plausible fan theory that perhaps this goes all the way back to the symbiote manipulating people's memories, and that maybe Anne and Eddie did have consensual sex with one another and brought about this pregnancy, but that neither of them remember it because the symbiote, in its jealousy and its desire to keep Eddie for himself, erased Anne's memory that this happened. And so it seems like somehow out of the blue she got pregnant, and she's thinking, they didn't even do anything, and that they only just bonded.
Right, but I would say for something as weird as symbiote rape was, I think if that was the case, he should have already gone ahead and said, you have all these words being thrown around and saying how awful this story is now that that happened. I think if that was the case, he should have just outright said, oh, actually, we just had sex and, we had a kid. Because now it just raises more questions, and it throws away more folks who think that Eddie and the symbiote should be in a love relationship. It just divides the border some more after that.
Now there is a function for that. There is a purpose that he did it this way, I believe, and it all comes from a sales perspective. It's generating all this talk, all this hubbub. It's getting people's attention, and therefore possibly getting more people to buy into this book to see what's going on. It's helping.
That's
with
true.
sales.
Symbiote sex, symbiote sex sells, people.
I mean, after all, they're getting second and third prints now on every issue.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yes, and it's even outselling Spider-Man. So as long as it keeps selling, and folks are still going to keep buying, and we're going to still stay on Kate's wild ride.
Yep.
So.
And
But,
I don't think
yeah.
he's going to leave us hanging either. I'm
No.
confident he's going to come back to this because he said stay tuned.
Yeah.
I mean, any writer can say that and not come back to it, but I'm pretty sure Donnie has a plan to address this.
Well, yes, because most of the folks that start a new series are like, well, guys, I have 60 something issues mapped out, and of course they never happen. But this is the one time where I feel like that this series is selling. It's having all these reviews. I think this series could push up to 50 or 60 issues So I don't. And Cates has said that he loves Eddie. He loves Venom. You know, like he's like one of the few folks that like have loved that character since they first appeared.
He claims
yeah.
that he learned to read by reading Venom comics.
Yeah.
He's been a fan
Yeah.
this long. I don't think he's going to screw all the other fans over by.
No, he loves Venom, but he's also a writer and he also works for Marvel, so he knows that selling all of this as like a mystery and like a controversy, it's going to wind up selling more books.
Yeah.
So
Now,
yeah.
Now another thing that I've been kind of ever since it was brought to mind that the symbiote has been altering Eddie's memories, and this is also coming back to the pregnancy thing and Anne, is that perhaps Anne's suicide is just another altered memory. That Anne is still alive, and that Anne's own memories were also manipulated by the symbiote, so she doesn't remember consensually getting or not. It's not really, well, you can say it's consensual, but it was also kind of maybe an accident as well. But
I think
yeah.
Sorry,
So go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry. I think more than likely Anne is alive, and I think most of the fans would love that because even online, you know, there's a lot of fan art for like Anne from the movie, from the comics. Folks have always loved the idea of a she-Venom character, and that's Anne right there.
Yeah, I have a suspicion that we're going to see Anne very soon. Perhaps as soon as Absolute Carnage, because everyone who ever wore a symbiote is a target.
Yeah, I mean, and I wouldn't be surprised if Donnie writes it in the sense that Venom made Eddie hallucinate seeing her dead on the pavement, and making
which would also be a very bad thing.
Yeah, because he'll get really pissed off
again. Yeah,
yeah.
Which sort of makes me question, because now that Eddie has seen that it's manipulating his mind, I think they should have used that time to say, oh, well, this is also true, that's not true, that's true, that's not true. Because I think he's going to keep selling this, oh, well, something may not be true. Maybe Flash never was Venom in the first place. Right? So,
yeah, you would like that, wouldn't you?
Yes, love that. Exactly. Flash is dead forever. He's always been dead. But yeah, I think it's a strong possibility we'd see Anne back, because we also need Anne, or we need someone to watch over his son, since Venom can always be, you know, watching his kids, since he's always going from one place like to the next place, doing like whatever he like needs to do. And I think having Anne alive would solve a lot of issues that have already been shown up. So
yeah, I think this opens it up to the possibility of everyone working out their problems, because you know, before Anne died, Eddie was all about winning her back and being back together with Anne, so he was trying to be a better person and everything before she died. So I think if Anne is still alive, there might be some room there for Eddie, because there's a lot of time since Anne supposedly died and now, so there's been a lot of character progression and character development. So I think we're coming to a point where there might be even a possibility of Anne and Eddie actually getting back together and working things through.
Well, the other thing is too, I would really like to know, hopefully if Donnie does explain, I would like to know where she's been, why did she hide herself all these years, you know?
Yeah. So I do think that after this last issue, we're going to slowly start on the road to healing, because now that everything's been laid out on the table, of course, Eddie and the symbiote are still going to be one. I think we're now at the point where we can start healing over those wounds, probably after this next Absolute thing happens. But
I think
so.
I think the cool thing is that we've gotten to a point where Eddie and the symbiote are at their lowest with each other. the symbiote has hit rock bottom. There might be a little bit further to go when it's possibly revealed that Anne is still alive, and Eddie learns that. So, but from here, we have War of the Realms and Absolute Carnage coming up. So it's putting Eddie and the symbiote in this precarious position where they're at odds with each other, but they're going to have to work together to get through these next two events.
Now,
Yep,
also,
so yeah.
no, I was going to
So
say
you go
also
ahead.
too. Also too, I was going to say what I forgot to mention for the last issue in issue 12. I did like how Venom was able to safely bring away Dylan. You know, and it was a little sad moment. You know, because he was probably just going to leave them anyway. But you know, also him, you know, interrogating Carl, telling him to stay away from Dylan, threatening him, like pretty much saying it's over. You know, it was a pretty heartfelt moment. Him, you know,
Yes.
temporarily
Yes.
saying goodbye. So
Oh yeah, it's like the symbiote was helping Eddie, and it was helping his son. It was showing that it wants to change. So I think there is some room now for them to grow and be better than what they are now. So
Yeah.
we're on that road after 12 issues and all this hubbub came out. I think we're finally reaching that point of healing.
Yeah.
But who knows? We'll
but
see.
also I just found it weird that he was able to somehow form his whole body without Eddie, which I kind of found a little odd.
Yeah. That's I guess part of his Knoll, Clintar powers or whatever.
Yeah.
Um,
I know a few
right.
fans have noted that the symbiote did have this power shortly during the Space Knight run after it had been cleansed on the planet Clintar and reconnected. It gained some special abilities that didn't have before, including being able to, for short periods of time, be separated from Eddie and operate independently. So, and that might even come back to how being so close to Null's influence on Clintar, it gained some of those powers, and now that it's been exposed to Null once again through the Grendel symbiote, it's regaining some of those powers.
Okay.
Well, yes, but also like in issue 13, like we know the next issue, like they're gonna be back as one again. So I guess it really doesn't matter that the symbiote walked away. Yeah,
Possibly.
like that's also true. Like
that's
we
the
haven't.
weird
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
Yeah, because it's like they're at odds with each other, so it'd be weird to see them back together, perhaps. And because I know that issue 15's solicitation just recently came out, and it's saying
Mhm.
how Dylan is in tow with Eddie and the symbiote, and perhaps, very, very possible, the symbiote is operating on its own, which would kind of explain what's going on with the symbiote in War of the Realms, where it's for some reason joined Malekith's side of the war.
Yeah, I think it's being forced to though, but we'll see. We'll
But
see.
the thing is, too, is like some people were pointing out: is Eddie going to even reunite with Venom, or is it just going to be Eddie in these three parts that Colin and Quella are going to be a part of?
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Yeah,
'Cause
I
if
think
that's
the
case,
issue.
yeah.
Yeah. Like I think issue 16 said that he has to watch his son, but also
15.
Venom's also going to be in the Strike Force Avengers, so I think they are going to be back together. But I mean,
It's gonna
who
be
knows?
Very,
Who knows?
It's going to be very
Who knows?
interesting to see what role they play in War of the Realms.
Yes, especially since Kate and I think his name is Jason Aaron. I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
They have sort of intertwined Venom and Thor now. So there's going to be some cool things with Null and Thor. So
And All Black,
we'll have
the
to wait.
Necrosword.
Yes,
remember-
All Black, the Necrosword.
Because remember, keep in mind, Thor did appear technically in issue 1.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thor is the reason that all of the symbiotes broke free from Null. So yeah,
Also,
very
Thor is the
interesting stuff.
reason. Isn't it that Thor is the reason they have a fear of the loud sounds because of his thunder?
think
'Cause
so.
because
I
I
think
remember
so.
that
Yeah.
their fear of fire comes from being Albach the Necrosword being forged by Null.
Yeah. I think the sound was because the abyss is quiet, or I mean, it's something like that. It's something like that.
I don't
yeah.
recall the exact.
I don't recall either, but I'm sure one person will write us a whole essay about how it's actually this and that. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, guys. We're fake Venom fans. We're sorry.
All right. Anything else we want to mention about the about this arc before we move along?
I think we've covered everything.
Let's see. I have a few notes here. Maybe run through these. Okay. The art, of course, was amazing. We had Ryan Stegman and I just forgot his name.
Joshua
we had a new
Cassara and Ebon
right.
Coelho.
That guy. Right. His art style matches amazingly with Ryan's. So like, of course, the art is always good. Let's see. I like a few of the things that they threw in there just as references. You had a Wells and you had a Wells sign. You had a Medina Street sign. You had Todd's Cafe. And like all these other sort of small little cameos going around there.
Yeah.
That was nice. Let's see. Let me read through these quick little stream of conscience notes here. Oh, the Maker has some of Eddie's son's blood. We don't know what that's going to be. So that may be the shock that he's actually part symbiote or something.
Oh, another thing is,
yeah.
the Maker had Flash Thompson's codex. So how
yes,
the heck did he get a hold of that? He had to dig up the body?
Which has been used up. Yeah, that also sort of brings up the question. Now, if Flash is dead, and like everyone's been saying, he's healing because he's anti-venom, if the Maker dug up his body, does he know that he's healing as anti-venom? Is he actually dead? Who knows?
Probably preserved his body.
Yeah, he probably has his body, I suppose, but I don't know. The symbiote did not like that. Oh, that's another thing. So the symbiote, showed that it really loved Flash a lot more than Eddie. But now, after all of this revelation, I'm starting to think, mainly because I'm more of an Eddie Brock fan. Did the symbiote say those things because it wants to make Eddie jealous, so he stays with him?
Oh yeah.
And I'm just curious if the symbiote actually did have all of that love for Flash, or it was mainly just to make Eddie jealous.
Was it
but
more of mind
I think
games?
Yeah, I think that's one of those other things we're going to have to see a lot later. But we'll see. Do we want to talk about Web of Carnage next? No, Web of Venom, those two issues?
So,
yeah.
Oh, wait, what about the annual? I forget what the annual was about. We had our
the annual was just like the
Venom
short stories.
Yeah, it was just tying up the time when Black Cat got her nose broken.
Oh yes, right, yeah.
And she wanted revenge, and then they pretty much made up, and they kept like a mutual.
Oh, and then the kind of homage to the How I Almost Got Him episode of Batman the Animated Series about how all of the different villains are talking about how Venom isn't scary or whatever.
Yeah. Like there's a fight with Wolverine. Like Wolverine was the reason Venom started to look over the innocents, because like they were saying he's just a rabid animal just lashing out saying, "I effed up Spider-Man, who are you?" And then like Wolverine says, "Hey man, you got to chill out, find a hobby or something." So
yeah.
But yeah.
And then they even had a little story. I don't know. I guess it was a little expansion of when he was the Madness Venom against Juggernaut.
Oh yeah, that was funny.
Yes. Yeah.
There's like this small other guy on the side. He was like pretending it all happened.
No,
I don't know.
That was Eddie. That was Eddie.
Yeah, that was Eddie. Oh yeah. He was in the cloak. Yeah.
Yeah, and he was in the club disguised, but also telling the story, and then he ate Mac at the end or something. I don't know.
Yeah, because Mac was talking shit about Eddie.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So, otherwise, do you have any other points, Aaron, you wanted to discuss?
Uh, Not on the Abyss. I think I said everything I wanted to share.
All right.
Well, I guess one last thing. I think another thing we saw mentioned in the Abyss was Project Pegasus, which I thought was funny because that was also in the new Captain Marvel movie. So, but yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's it.
All right.
That's
So,
it.
thus concludes our review of the Abyss, the second story arc of Donnie and Ryan's stellar Venom comics. So, what do we have to look forward to from here? Well, next up we have Colin Bunn and Iban Coelho returning to the series for the next 3 issues, throwing Venom and Dylan into Marvel's next big crossover event, The War of the Realms. Malekith the Dark Elf recruits Venom to his ranks in a war against Asgard and Earth, and maybe All Black the Necrosode is being thrown into the mix. We'll see about that. Venom will also show up in the main War of the Realm book and other tie-ins, so be sure to check out the link to my comic book chronology project below this video, just to follow along to see where he shows up. I'm starting to, note which issues he'll show up in, but we won't really know for sure until these things are actually published. Additionally, Venom will be joining a new Avengers team in May with the debut of Savage Avengers. That one's going to be pretty interesting because isn't it supposed to be led by Conan the Barbarian and Wolverine?
Yes, I don't know if there's a specific leader, but yeah,
For the Savage Avengers.
Yeah.
yeah, Savage. Yeah,
It's going to be
yeah.
that's going to be an interesting one, especially since who's writing that one? Gary Dugan, I think.
Yes, Gary Dugan, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah,
Man,
Gary Dugan.
man.
So,
Yeah.
he was mentioning how Conan views the symbiote as a jinn or something, a dark spirit. So that's gonna be interesting to see how Venom is actually handled in that. And then we'll also get a short story in the pages of Marvel Comics Presents #5 in May. Um, that issue is supposed to be dealing. This new series of Marvel Comics Presents is supposed to be featuring stories with characters from different eras. Like #5 will be about characters from the 80s. So we're going to get a cool new story about Venom in that. Then following War of the Realms, we can look forward to the big summer event Absolute Carnage, which first starts with the free comic book day issue of Spider-Man and Venom, which will be out on May 4th. Then the series will kick off in August. And this series, this event is actually starting to look like a for real line-wide Marvel event, because at C2E2 they Marvel previewed their schedule of events for the year, noting that next up is War of the Realms, of course, and then there's a new X-Men event coming up, and then after that is Absolute Carnage.
Also, I think you guys forgot one other book, Symbiote Spider-Man.
Haven't forgotten about that yet. Yeah, so there's
Oh.
there's also a brand new Spider-Man story set in during the time when Spider-Man was bonded to living costume, in the pages of the 5-issue Symbiote Spider-Man series starting in May. That will have him being pitted against Mysterio. So
Yeah, I'm actually pretty interested to see where that goes because they probably might add some new mythos. Probably.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like I think it's supposed to be that this is when Spider-Man is like asleep or unconscious or whatever, and the symbiote is taking him for a joyride. So it's
Yeah.
Mysterio dealing with the symbiote, not really Spider-Man.
Yeah, like I think it's trying to tie in more with the new Spider-Man Far From Home movie.
Yeah.
Because in that one he like has like a black stealth suit and he's fighting Mysterio. So I think it's so I think they're having that mainly just to tie into it. But since Absolute Carnage is going to be a few months later, they may throw in a few new things, like y'all just said. But I think it is one of those interesting things to look about because we don't have a whole lot of stories about the symbiote in Spider-Man.
Like we
like
just
after
recently
the fact.
had one.
Yeah.
We just
Was the
recently had
annual.
one
Yeah,
like
for
with
the
Spider-Man
annual for
annual.
the Amazing Spider-Man. Yeah.
Right. Well, right, but what I'm saying is like we don't have a whole lot of stories exploring the symbiote with Spider-Man after the fact.
Yeah.
Because like when he was in the suits, it was all just, oh look, this suit's alive, or like helps me hide like my web shooters and things. But we don't have a whole lot of stories exploring what the symbiote actually thought and was doing with Peter.
Yeah, the
So
perspective of the symbiote hasn't really been
yeah,
explored too much.
yeah. So that'll be certainly interesting to look at.
Yeah. So we got a lot of cool things we can look forward to in comics for Venom. Uh, so I think that puts a pretty good pin in today's episode. If you'd like to participate in the live audience for future We Are Venomaniacs episodes, just join our Discord server by following the link below, and check out the podcast chat channel for details about our next recording date. We'll make announcements on Discord, Twitter, Reddit, and the Venom site websites for upcoming episodes. So
And and like and subscribe, please, because we're going to add some more podcasts and things onto this channel. But also, if you hates this series, if you don't like his series, and we missed a few points, and you really want to share why you don't or you do, please let us know because we like reading what y'all think. Okay?
We all would appreciate your feedback.
yeah, so you can make comments on the YouTube channel, but it would be better if you joined our Discord or joined the discussion on the Venom site or anything like that.
For exclusive news, yes.
Yeah.
Exclusive news and comic covers and things. We're the first ones to actually post all of those.
Yeah.
I mean, you are.
Well, yeah, me. Well, I mean, I wasn't bragging myself, but yeah.
Yeah. So, as always, thanks to my fellow hosts Carlos and Aaron for joining me today.
Thank you.
Take care, guys.
And thanks to the Venom site for permitting us to make this podcast under the TVS banner and all of your generous support. And finally, thank you, loyal listeners and fellow Venomaniacs. You guys make an awesome community, and it's an honor to be your voice on the airwaves. Together, we are Venomaniacs.